What's up everyone, Tommy with Studio Sense here. Appreciate you stopping by to check out today's video. Trying to get more niche fragrances on my channel. The greater majority of videos that I do are designer fragrances, and that's on purpose because they're a lot more accessible, easy, and inexpensive. And if you're like me, it's always nice to get a fragrance inexpensively. So that's kind of the modus operandi, of kind of the vibe of my channel. The fragrances are a broad grouping or medium, especially for men's fragrance. I'm definitely working on expanding my channel, expanding my catalog. And so today I'm very happy to bring you, in recognition of President's Day, which was day before yesterday, we're going to be taking a look at a fragrance that has to do with one of our US presidents in the past, and that is 8 & Bob, the original. So we'll be taking a look at that a little bit more closely, tell you really interesting historical facts or historical story. So I've got that and more coming up, so stay tuned. Welcome back everyone. So today we're taking a look at a niche fragrance from the house of 8 & Bob. So to kind of save you some time, and also so you can use the menu to jump straight to it should you want to, I've narrated the story, as it were, with a little bit of video to spice it up just a bit as to the actual story of the fragrance. So I'm not going to incorporate that into the review because it's just kind of an adjunct to the overall quality and presentation of the fragrance, but it's a huge one. There are lots of fragrance houses with fragrances that have a rich history and heritage. Acqua di Parma, often used by actors and actresses of years past, you know, in the 50s and up and coming. And then of course 8 & Bob is one that I wasn't aware of until not that long ago. And it's really cool. It's a cool story. So you can enjoy that. You can jump to it right now using the menu, or you can watch my review and then it will naturally roll into the story. So let's take a look though, a little bit of the presentation, show you a bit more and go into a bit more detail. Now, the sleeve and the book kind of gives me JPG vibes with those stripes, but they're not wide sailor stripes, so it's just really cool, like a pinstripe. It says 8 & Bob on the front, 8 & Bob on the spine of the book, and then on the other side, 8 & Bob. And then on the very bottom, you've got your fragrance information. It is a 100 ml bottle eau de parfum concentration, ingredients, various stickers, a UPC, and then the batch code. Once you pull the really heavy book out and then you open it up, that's where the actual story is told and where I actually read it from and narrated it from. Then you go a little bit further into the book on page 29, the right side, it's 29, and there you have the little cachet or covey or cutout where 8 & Bob sits and fits. Once you take the fragrance out, it's a very minimalistic, simplistic look, which I really like. The label is a very thick linen type paper with a simplistic font similar to Garamond. It says 8 & Bob. The lid is black plastic and the bottle is thick, heavy glass. The juice has a little bit of a yellowish natural tint to it, giving you an idea of maybe a bit of a citrus-oriented fragrance, and it is. So there you have it. This is one of those fragrances where the presentation figures prominently in how much you want to own the fragrance, or the fact that you can give it as a really cool gift. So this is I'm gonna open it up so you can see the cutout. Now what's really cool is I actually used to do this. My father would go to bookstores and come back with these like old books or older like textbooks, and they were pretty thick. You could usually cut the pages out pretty easily and fit something like an Altoid can, or back when Band-Aids were sold in little metal cans, or a Cracker Jack box or whatever, you could put it inside, keep your money and your valuables in. That was kind of a cool thing. Presentation is great, so you can opt to set it on your bookshelf, or you can set it beside your fragrances and you can set the bottle out. What about the fragrance itself? Let's talk a little bit about the notes that make up 8 & Bob, the original. Oh, and by the way, on the very back, it says Eau de Parfum 100 ml, the original. So if you ever wonder what its name is, it's on the back, the reverse side of the label. 8 & Bob is an aromatic woody fragrance that features top notes of pink pepper, cardamom, and lemon, with heart notes of violet leaf, labdanum, and dry woods, resting on a base of sandalwood, amber, and vetiver. So now that we know the notes that are in 8 and Bob the Original, let's talk about the fragrance itself. I'm going to give you a couple of sprays here. By the way, this actually came from twistedlily.com. Twisted Lily is a wonderful online boutique where you can find pretty much any niche fragrance that you're looking for. They have an amazing selection. Customer service is great. That's actually where this came from. And I'll give you guys a discount that you can use later on if you decide you want to purchase this or really anything else. This is the 100 ml. It actually comes in a 50 ml size and then a little bit smaller 30 ml size. So we'll talk more about the size and pricing later, but oh man, I love that smell. I am a huge fan of citrusy, woody, soapy, fresh fragrances. To smell it now, you would think it would be something that your grandfather or grandmother, because it's unisex, would wear. It would be like a little bit heavier floral, but it is not. This has a near perfect mix of citrus, woods, herbs, and then that fragrant note called Andrea that's found in the Andes Mountains of Chile. And there's violet leaf, that violet leaf. Let's talk a little bit about what it smells like in terms of the open, the mid, and the dry down. In the open, and that's why this is in the thumbnail, to me, this kind of epitomizes some of the better aspects that I really enjoy seeing coming in spring. And so that's why I say, I feel like this is what spring smells like. When I was a kid, I used to climb trees a lot, and some of the younger trees, I would break the branches on during the course of climbing them, and just that smell, lightly bitter, woodsy buds that were beginning to be formed on the branches too, that would add to that whole overall aroma. And it just smells, feels, and makes me think of all the wonderful facets of spring. In the mid is where the violet comes more into play. The woods become a bit stronger, and then you get some resinous facets as well. So it gets a little bit more musky, and it starts its journey towards the soapy. Then it moves into the dry down, and that kind of resides in that woodsy, soapy, fresh, lightly citrusy, very aromatic dry down. While this doesn't have an official note of vanilla in it, it's got a very warm, vanillic, woody kind of tonal quality that comes from the sandalwood and the amber combination in the base. So amber or ambergris, and that good bit of ambergris and sandalwood, and then the dry, elegant effect of vetiver are what I love about this fragrance. The opening is very aromatic. It wakes your senses up. It's got that pink pepper, lemon, and cardamom trifecta. Sometimes I smell this, the open anyway, and it's a bit feminine, and sometimes I smell it and it's a bit masculine. But somewhere it kind of settles down and resides in that fine middle distance. So really anyone can wear this. But I feel like in the dry down specifically, it's a bit more masculine. It's such a perfect balance of citrusy, lightly herbal, woodsy, creamy, milky, lightly vanillic. 8 and Bob the Original is very office-safe fragrance. In fact, I would highly recommend wearing it in the office. In fact, anywhere that you would wear a lightly citric, lightly herbal, fresh, spring and summer, soapy fragrance, you would wear this. That's the best simplistic description of 8 and Bob the Original. So when to wear it? Yes, you can wear it year round. Some people feel like it's a perfect spring and summer fragrance like myself, because it's more citrus, little bit of light green kind of effect to it without being vegetal. Now the way that I've worn this fragrance, and I seem to get the best wear out of it, one on this side, one on this side because of, you know, your pulse points. And I'll actually spray one on the back of my head too, because your head tends to get a bit warm, and as you're walking it creates a nice sillage trail, and it doesn't overpower you because it's behind you, right? So kind of a neat way to wear a fragrance specifically like this, and especially an eau de parfum concentration. Decent projection on this. It's a little bit of a softer, subdued fragrance in terms of projection, but it does create an amazing scent trail or sillage trail. Now earlier I said 8 and Bob the Original would make a great gift, and because it's already pretty much wrapped, you just put it in the book. It's super protected. You put it in its sleeve, you wrap it up. Of course, it comes with cellophane around it. It's perfectly self-contained and ready to go. I love this idea. Not only the story behind it, but I love the whole idea of having a fragrance embedded in the middle of a book. Not only because I did it when I was a kid, it's just a really neat, very self-contained idea and gift. I really like 8 & Bob. It's a fantastic fragrance, and if you're not really into niche fragrances or you're kind of afraid to go into that territory, it's definitely one of those that's going to be a little bit easier. Might be a good starter fragrance for you in terms of niche. I've smelled some designer fragrances that are very similar, so it's not like it's going to be uber expensive or super obscure or super strange. It's just really, really nice, soapy, clean, and in my book, get it, is masculine. Now, about purchasing. You can find 8 & Bob the original at twistedlily.com. Fantastic boutique, great website. I've listed it down below. You can get on up to a 150 ml bottle if you want, but starting with 30 ml, I think the 30 ml is 85, then there's a 50 ml, and then it's $240 for the 100 ml bottle. You can also get sample sizes from Twisted Lily as well, if you want to check those out. Regardless of whether you order 8 & Bob the original or not, if you decide to get 3 or 4 different fragrances, you can get 10% off your entire order. All you gotta do is in the coupon code area, put in all one word, StudioSense10. Right? StudioSense 10, StudioSense 10. That'll give you 10% off your entire order. So don't forget that. That's also down below as a reminder. Albert Fouquet, the son of a Parisian aristocrat, was part of elite French society in the early 20th century and a perfume connoisseur. In a room on the upper floor of the family chateau, Fouquet created and perfected various essences for his own personal use, aided by Philippe, the family butler. At social events, he would surprise everyone with an exquisite fragrance that became increasingly in demand within the exclusive social circle he frequented. However, Fouquet continually rejected proposals to market his fragrance. One night during his summer vacation in 1937 on the Côte d'Azur, Albert met and got on very well with a young American student who was touring France in a convertible, John F. Kennedy. Within minutes of being introduced, JFK was captivated by the essence that Albert wore. John's charm and congeniality persuaded Albert to leave him a sample of his fragrance with a note at the hotel the following morning. In this bottle, you will find the dash of French glamour that your American personality lacks. On returning from his vacation, Albert received a letter from John in the US, thanking him for the kind gesture and informing him of the success his perfume was having among his friends. He requested Albert to send him 8 samples, and if your production allows, another one for Bob. Without fully understanding the request, Albert decided to send a box with sufficient samples to offset the transport costs. His perfectionism extended not only to the fragrance but everything surrounding it. He didn't fill the order until Philippe found some beautiful glass bottles in a Parisian pharmacy that Albert considered suitable for his fragrance. Finally, he ordered several boxes decorated with the same pattern as the shirt that JFK was wearing when they met, and then labeled the bottles and boxes with John's amusing request, 8 & Bob. Albert was surprised a few months later when he began receiving letters from America with requests from various Hollywood directors, producers, and actors such as Cary Grant and James Stewart. Everyone wanted the 8 & Bob fragrance they had apparently discovered through John's father, who had maintained relationships with well-known stars because of his previous business ventures in the movie industry. Unfortunately, the success of his fragrance would not spread much further. In the spring of 1939, Albert died in an automobile accident near Biarritz, France. Philippe, the only person who could handle the orders, would only continue with the work for a few months, since the start of World War II forced him to leave his job with the Fouquet family. In the final shipments, Philippe hid the bottles inside books that he carefully cut by hand to prevent the Nazis from seizing the fragrance. Decades later, the formula for 8 & Bob has been completely recovered, along with its carefully crafted production process. Once again, it has become one of the most exclusive fragrances preferred by the world's most elegant men and women. Limited production. In January 1934, Albert Fouquet traveled to Chile at the invitation of the Italian ambassador. Besides enjoying the charms of the country, he took advantage of this trip to search the Andes for aromatic plants that would enhance his fragrances. He returned to Paris with several sprigs of andrea, the name Albert had given the plant, whose extracts are the soul of his fragrance, Ate and Bob. Andrea is a wild plant in short supply due to the altitude and limited area in which it grows, and can only be picked during the months of December and January. The plants gathered undergo a very exacting selection process in which only 7% are chosen. This process ends between March and April, and only then is it known how many units of Ate and Bob can be bottled, and how many can be allotted to each country. Well, that's it for my quick review of Ate and Bob, the original, this amazing fragrance that has this very rich heritage and background. I love fragrances with a story. And not only is it a great story and a great presentation, the fragrance itself happens to smell blissful. And again, it's a great starter fragrance if you're wanting an entry into the world of niche. I appreciate you guys coming along for the ride today. Thanks so much for your time. And as always, thank you so much for your support of my channel. I'm Tommy with Studio Sense, and I'll see you tomorrow.